This is another solo episode of the Hybrid Remote Center of Excellence. I'm Nola Simon. I'm your host. And today I want to talk about worldview. So, worldview influences every individual, and there are many permutations. It's really based in personal experience. So, as many people as there are on this planet, as that says how many individual, unique worldviews there are, you're influenced by how you were raised, where you were born, where you grew up, how many people lived in your family, whether you had grandparents, whether you didn't, whether you're religious, whether you went to school, whether you went to university, what job you worked in, all of those experiences influence your worldview. And then, of course, that's unrelated to trauma or good experiences, bad experiences, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, all of that factors into who you are as an individual. Now, all of those realities of your individual lives you bring into work. And executives are no different than anybody who works any other type of job. So you come to making decisions and you factor in your worldview. This is where you need to be aware of bias and how your lived experience influences your decision-making abilities. So in terms of actually making intentional headway with hybrid remote strategy, you have to understand the worldview of the people who are making the decisions of how the organization is actually going to support hybrid remote. And that's where it's really very important to design a strategy looking at how people understand how the world works. What are the defaults? What do they value in terms of the office, in terms of flexibility? Do they understand caregiving? Do they have any perspective of what it's like to work all day, have to take care of small children and an elderly parent? Do they understand the need for autonomy, for mastery, for relatedness? Do they understand how people make friends, how they collaborate, how they innovate? How do they prioritize and how do they make their own decisions as well? That's where it's like you need to really understand and individually talk to the leadership team to understand what it is that they want, but also understand what it is that they expect, where their blind spots are, and what they value. And that really is going to influence how you set up the strategy and how you tell the story. And it's really going to impact the transparency, the authenticity, and how you actually create for the future work. And then you also have to build out resilience, because what happens when individuals leave and new people come? How does that process? Is it a perk? Is it a program? Is it a benefit? Is it built into the structure and the bone structure of the organization? Is it in the DNA? And what happens when those individual decision makers come and go? And how does this live? How does this look 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now? And how is it going to be built so that it's going to sway? Is it a hardwood tree where it's very rigid and it's going to grow slowly? Or is it a willow tree where it's going to bend and in the breeze and be able to adapt? That's really what the metaphor is. How adaptable, how resilient is the model that you're building so that we can have a good structure that is going to carry us through for the future of work. And that's where worldview becomes very important, because you never convince anybody. It's the story that they tell themselves. You have to change the heart before you change the mind. And in order to get to the heart, you have to understand the worldview and what is important. And that's how you build the strategy. That's how you tell the story. And then you have to build everything else around that. So that's a very high level global view of intentionality that needs to be part of the strategy. And I'd love to hear what you think of that and what your experiences have been. True stories are the best stories. So those are the ones that I'd love to hear. So if you see this on LinkedIn, comment. If you have a review on the podcast, please fill out a review on your favorite player. If you're in the community member of the Hybrid Remote Center of Excellence, please comment there. I write about this on Substack as well. You can comment there. I'd love to have the feedback and I'd love to hear your stories because that's where we can create and innovate and create the future of work. Thank you.
Finding yourself in orbit.